I think if you've clicked on this video, it's fair to say you're hyped about the upcoming GTA game. I mean, who isn't hyped for it? In a previous video, I've talked about the fact I'm sure it'll be a good game, and I still stand by that point. However, GTA 6 has a big problem, or rather several big problems. Hello and welcome fellow virgins, it is iSuperVirgin here, and today I'd like to talk about all the big problems that GTA 6 will probably have. Now to start off this video, I'd like to talk about the fact that, this video is my opinion based on previous Rockstar games and how they've handled those, and the very limited information we do have on GTA 6 right now. There is still only officially one trailer, and not a lot of that is usable for proper information around this video. But let's say there's some speculation here that I'd like to talk about, and I feel like some of you might actually agree with me here. So to start it off, I'd like to talk about how Rockstar Games is very used to giving you games that are very hand-holding. They really tell you what to do. Now, a YouTuber by the name of Nikki Jakey actually already made a video about this, about how its game design, Rockstar's game design, is outdated compared to what it should be. And I do have to agree that in GTA and in Red Dead Redemption, you really do get that feeling of just getting your hand held because, well, you can't really do much more than the path that Rockstar wants you to go. You're gonna have a mini-map that's constantly gonna show you where you need to go. You're constantly gonna have that goal, and if you strive too far from where you are supposed to go, then it's all of a sudden mission failed and you restart from a certain point. And that tends to be very tedious and annoying because it really takes away from the choices you can make as a character in the game. And when we look at, for instance, Red Dead Redemption 2 really does that well. When you go outside of the missions, that isn't really much more that factor loses it. But the moment you actually go to missions, then all of a sudden your choice is kind of an illusion and there's not really much choices. Don't get me wrong, it is nice to have these helping hand, I guess, in a way, because, well, I mean, I don't want to be able to, I can't always figure everything out myself, right? I don't want to be able to be like, oh damn, I need to find out all about this. In Red Dead Redemption, you have these stores with special things. There's a store with an illegal gambling thing in the back. There is a store that has a someone in the basement that talks to you if you go to the side of the building, and those are little events that you can have happen and you can handle, but you still have that choice there. And with missions, that choice kind of leaves and you have to do exactly the thing that Rockstar wants within the gameplay mechanics. I don't need a step-by-step guide when all the game really wants me to do is go to a certain point and then move a box, right? Or sit in a corner and wait until the enemies walk to a certain position. That's very not useful for me, right? If I want to be able to play the game where I need to take out a rival gang and I know they're coming to that point, it would be nice that as a suggestion a character would say hey, why not set ourselves up here, but then I get the freedom of choice to set myself somewhere completely different, or even just ram them. Don't even wait to ambush them, just ram them and attack them and go into the offense. And those are options that I should have, but in a GTA game, in GTA 5 or in Red Dead Redemption 2, if you do that, you automatically lose the mission. Or a character instantly ends up dead, and that's how you lose the mission. You'll always just end up with losing a mission, and that is something that I really, really hope GTA 6 won't have. But let's be honest here, their game design isn't all of a sudden going to change completely from what it already was for years, because they know it works. It's a working formula. GTA Online has also been doing this for years now. It is a working formula, it works, and I personally am not the biggest fan of it. Red Dead Redemption 2 has moved a bit better to the right point. For instance with Micah, the first time you do a mission with him, you have to let him escape a prison cell, and you have choices in doing so. So you can get a hook that's not far from the cell, attach it to it, and then it pulls off the part of the wall for the cell, and then he gets in. It's one choice, but then you can also use dynamite to blow up on the wall. And so there's multiple little things you can do. And eventually the result can be the same. That's not the problem here, but we just want to be able to have a mission that says, go do this, and then have the freedom to choose how we want to do that. And I think that with Red Dead Redemption, they've handled that better than they did in GTA 5, because GTA 5 is just a step-by-step guide. Like I said, they act like you're a 4-year-old that doesn't know how to play the game. You constantly get these like dots on your mini map that just that they say like, oh, go here, go do that, go place this here, go do that. And this was very noticeable when you did the heists. So the heist setups were all like little missions, and you could do them, and they were like, they had a pop-up. Wasn't really too special, and you had the freedom of choosing what you did with the setups. But then when you actually did the heists and you finally like edited it out and you were like, okay, this is how we're gonna do it, and then we're gonna do this step next and then this step, and all of a sudden you have to do that, because when you think about it, the jewelry heist, you have to escape as Franklin. The only goal you have to do is you have to escape, but the game wants you to go a certain path, so you jump through, So you jump off a bridge, and then you go in a tunnel, and you go through that tunnel, and then you eventually end up next to the water, and then you ride into a truck, and then that truck drives away, and it's cool, like it's cinematic. But I don't want a cinematic game, I want a game, right? And so if you tell me, go do that heist, and I can set it up, and you give me guidelines on how to set that up, that's logical. I don't want to figure that all out by myself with no knowledge of how the game mechanics works. But if I do that, and then every single step of the way of doing that heist, you're just, after I've already planned it out, you're gonna tell me like, okay, now we're gonna make sure that you do it exactly the way we want it, or you just lose the mission, you can just start it over again. I hope they progressed as they did with Red Dead 2 and moved away from that and give you a lot more freedom. I do feel like that's gonna be the case, but I guess we'll have to see when the game does eventually come out. Another positive that I think we can look at when we see this problem in front of us is how there's already confirmed that NPC interactions will be a lot more advanced. They've actually looked for, I think, a new system with how they do NPC interactions, which means that NPCs will react differently to how the player works in certain events and certain missions. Like for instance, I think of the leaked gameplay that was released, when we look at someone getting robbed, or when we look at a liquor store, for instance, getting robbed, and then you can hold hostages and stuff, that's all gonna change how the NPCs interact with you. Maybe they'll be too scared. Maybe the police will change and they'll stay outside because you have hostages. Otherwise, they might just rush into the building trying to take you down. Like, I think that's going to change a lot the dynamic of how the game works, and I think that's also going to be a cool part on how you handle certain things. But then you of course have to have that freedom, because even if the game gives you then these special NPC interactions, but then just goes like, hey, you need to do it this way, or you just lose, you just end up dead, that's not really going to be a fun interaction. It's going to be fun for the first 3 times, and then you're just going to be like, it's a robbery again, right? Like, that doesn't make it fun, which is, for instance, why heists don't stay fun, right? They're fun for 1 or 2 times, and then you've done them, and then they're just boring. They're really boring to do again. And that's what I mean. The reason why it works with other games, like for instance Payday 2, which of course is a lot more cartoonish and all over the top, but the reason why it works is because you have so much freedom of choice in how you do it, and there's so many random events that can happen, and because of the randomness, it stays replayable. And I've already talked about replayability in games in a previous video, so go check that one out. But you understand what I'm trying to say here, that replayability is very much needed with something like GTA, and GTA has it, but it also has a lot of hand-holding. Then another issue that I think is mostly just for PC users is the fact that there has not yet been an announcement for the PC release. This means that so far only on Xbox and PlayStation it will release in 2025. And I do feel like that isn't going to be the case for PC. Why? Well, because the last 2 major Rockstar releases, GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2, also had that exact same thing. GTA 5 had almost about a 2-year difference when it came out in, I think, September of 2013, and then it was somewhere in June or May or June, or even July of 2015 on PC, and then I think it was a little over a year for Red Dead Redemption 2's release. And so I feel like maybe for GTA 6 this is going to be a bit of a tinier gap between it, maybe like a half year, but that is still going to be a half year where console players get to play the game. And a lot of PC players, I think, with the previous two games and also with this one are going to feel a bit like left out. Like, why the hell are you doing this to us? And there is a logical explanation to this, of course, because very simply, Rockstar are perfectionists. They want their game to be perfect. They want their game to run perfect. And let's be honest here, when GTA 5 or Red Dead Redemption 2 came out on PC, it ran buttery smooth. It ran perfectly smooth, and it could run on pretty average PCs because that's how Rockstar is. They want to perfect in everything they do. Now, the problem that comes with that is, well, with a PlayStation or an Xbox, it is a certain specification. It doesn't change. Those specifications will never change because a PlayStation 5 is a PlayStation 5, and every PlayStation 5 you will ever see will have the exact same specifications, except for maybe the amount of storage that PlayStation has. With PC, those are different, right? Every little rig could be different. I could have a certain graphics card and a certain motherboard and a certain CPU, and the next guy could have a completely different setup, and well, the game needs to work on both those PCs, and it needs to run well on both those PCs. And so therefore, I think Rockstar always takes a lot more time perfecting it for PC, so it runs really well on that as well. And again, with Xbox and PlayStation, that is one console that is never going to change, so they can just focus on those specifications, make it work on those specifications, and the game is basically done. And they have no reason to work further on a different thing. And so with PC, that takes a lot more time. Now, I do hope that they won't make the gap that long. I doubt the game isn't going to release on PC. That would be a financial disaster. Yes and no, because we also know that if the game doesn't release like 2 or 3 years later, I'm probably gonna buy a PlayStation just to be able to play GTA 6, which is an insane amount of money I would pay. But hell, if I'm not gonna play that game, everyone is hyped for this thing. And so in a way, it's more money for Sony, so maybe there's a deal, maybe more money for Microsoft when it comes to Xbox, maybe there's a deal there. I don't know. I just know that they'll release the PC release later than they will the console release. Now, the third reason. But first, I'd like to ask you a question. Are you subscribed to the channel? Because if not, why not subscribe? Every single Thursday and Saturday, I deliver high quality gaming commentary just like this video right here for you to enjoy. So subscribe. Now back to my third point, right? GTA 6's biggest issue is going to be its hyper-realistic nature. And you might be thinking to yourself, like, isn't that literally a positive? Like, didn't that make Red Dead and GTA so popular because it had so many cool little details? Well, yes. However, like I have stated, Rockstar are perfectionists, and that is a reputation that they have, and that is a reputation that comes with a cost as well. When you have a game like GTA 6 in the mix, people are very hyped, and it's going to be overhyped, of course, but there's already people with the leaks that came out and the trailer that came out that are claiming that it doesn't look good or that the gameplay looks weird and this and that, just because they saw a little bit of footage from an earlier build years ago that doesn't represent the final product that comes out next year. So a lot of people will have criticism on the game. A lot of people will think, oh, it needs to be absolutely perfect, and they will look for every single little detail that could be off, and they will criticize it immensely. Like, for instance, in GTA 5 you had flip-flops actually being able to flip-flop, and in Red Dead 2 your horse's gonads grow and shrink depending on the weather. Those are details that are very cool, but also kind of unnecessary for the game to be seen as a good game. But that creates, of course, the problem that the criticism for every single detail is going to be there, and every detail that doesn't match or isn't as good as people want it to be is going to get insane criticism. And that is, of course, another problem with gamers wanting way too much realism, and that it's always going to try to outdo the next game, when honestly, that's not how games should work or how games should be evaluated with gaming art. I think art design is a lot more important, but that's another conversation whatsoever. People will always try to nitpick and cry about the smallest little things in a game. It doesn't really matter. They'll always find something. So they'll never, like, Rockstar is never going to make a perfect game that is going to deliver exactly what every single person wants. People are going to nitpick, and I kid you not, GTA 6 will release, and on release, like the next day, people are already gonna shit on this and on that, and why is this a thing? Hell, people are already shitting because you have a female protagonist. Like, bro, there's 2 protagonists. That's first of all, like, you can play a guy if you really want to. And 2, who cares if it's a good story and a good game? Why wouldn't you, like, just play the game? It's gonna be fun. The game is set in as like a parody of the modern world, which means that there's gonna be comparisons to the modern world in a certain way, like for instance how the jokes are made and how they don't want to punch down. I already talked about that in other video where people are a bit scared about the whole punching down situation. The humor of GTA will definitely not change. I'm very certain of that, especially after seeing the first trailer with the motorbiker gang, with the guy stepping out of his car and, you know, grabbing his crotch, with the motor girl. I think that's what everyone was looking at in that trailer. Those are like stereotypes that Rockstar has made already and shown off. We already know that that is going to be a stereotypical, there's going to be stereotypical characters in the game, and that's good. They're just not going to be as offensive as some characters used to be, like for instance Yusuf Amir in GTA 4 blatantly saying the N-word. That's something that they're not going to do anymore, of course, but that isn't a negative. I mean, it's still going to be a funny game, probably. It's still going to have fun, like, stupid characters that make you laugh, like all the characters that Trevor knows, or Trevor himself, for instance. The hyperrealism, of course, also becomes a bit tedious. Now, I myself still love Red Dead 2. I feel like, in my opinion, it's still my favorite game ever made, and I love the whole hunting aspect of it, right? Having to do that completely perfect and having to have this whole mechanic around it just so I can get some certain outfits. Really cool. I love it. I love putting my time in it. But I also understand that, you know, when you skin an animal, it sometimes takes a whole like couple of seconds for just to skin one animal. Then you have to take the pelt and you have to put the pelt on your horse. Then you have to take your horse to a certain seller, and then once you've sold it, then you've got the pelt. So you have to do all of those steps every single time you want to sell a pelt, and you sometimes need 3 or 4 pelts for one part of an outfit, and you have 5 parts for an outfit. So it takes a whole lot of time, you know, hunting. And for me personally, I don't necessarily dislike that, but those are going to be small, tedious things, and they might actually be present in GTA 6 as well. I don't know in which way. Maybe, for instance, in GTA 5 you already had this, or in GTA 4 even, that if your car wouldn't start properly, it would take a little while. You know, you'd have to turn the car keys in the ignition. But that's something that maybe in GTA 6 they'd have you do again, because if you're trying to be too fast, you let the car keys drop or something, right? Like something like that. It's realistic. It's not really that nice. Or how if you don't put your seatbelt on, you fly out the window. Those are realistic things that can be tedious or not fun, and that can make the game, you know, less fun. People will dislike that probably, and I think that's his biggest issue that's going to be. It's going to try to be hyper-realistic, but I sure hope that they find the exact line that is going to satisfy the most people with how realistic it is, while still being like a fun, unrealistic game. I've been ranting for long enough now. I'd like to hear your opinion on this. So why not leave it down in the comments below? Maybe you think it's gonna be a masterpiece. Maybe you think it has its issues, like I've stated. Either way, I'd love to hear your opinion. Genuinely do. I read all the comments in my videos. Anyhow, I hope you have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.